The Nigerian National Petroleum and Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria have cautioned motorists against panic buying as petrol queues return to Abuja and Lagos. Arise News sister outfit This Day newspaper gathered that many filling stations were not selling petroleum products in Abuja and environs at the weekend, blaming rising depot price and lack of access to petrol owing to new payment rules by the Petroleum Product Marketing Company, a subsidiary of the State Oil Company for the development. Pockets of queue were also observed in new filling stations across Lagos. While some of the marketers in Lagos have shut down service to customers, many others have increased the pump price of petrol at their filling stations to avoid shutting down operations. Some of the marketers who are selling at 162 per litre have now raised their pump price to between 165 and 170 naira per litre. Defiance of the directive by the Nnpc that there will be no increase in petroleum price in February. Sad tale, Dr. Abati.
No, what the Nnpc said is that there will be no increase in pump price of petrol in March.
In March, yeah.
And the Nnpc is also saying that, the country has enough stock of petrol to be able to carry everybody along. And hence, the Nnpc is warning against hoarding and panic buying. And of course, the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria are on all fours in terms of their views, also with the Nnpc. But what we see is that indeed there has been panic buying. There has been, alleged hoarding of petroleum products. And I think the basic issues are as follows. One, the pump price, the spot price of crude, both Brent crude and the Western Texas Intermediate increased within the last week by about 5.6%. Brent crude now is conveniently over $60, about $65 per barrel. So what that means, of course, is if the government, as they did in April 2020, have been talking about market forces, there is a fear that the pump price of fuel could increase. Now, it has increased in some fuel stations to about 170 naira. Even diesel has gone up to about 250. And I think that this is just natural behavior. So people are panicking because they think, should the government decide to follow market forces, then, of course, the pump price of fuel will go up radically. Now, it's the same thing. Even if you are selling just ordinary tomato, if you are selling onions, and you hear that the original price at source has gone up, you are likely to hoard. So people are responding to this, expectation. The second thing to worry about is that, yes, these fuel stations that are hoarding fuel and that have caused the panic that we have witnessed over the weekend, what is government doing about them? There's the Department of Petroleum Resources. About 2 weeks ago or so, I hope I'm right, the DPR launched some kind of app that they say electronically they will be able to monitor activities at fuel stations across the country. And they talked about the buying of, people at the downstream level. Now, what has happened with regard to that? Why is it that it is possible for the owner of a fuel station to just arbitrarily increase the pump price of fuel? Third, now, if the Nnpc is assuring us that there will be no increase in the pump price of fuel, is this a reversal of policy? Is this a confirmation that the Nigerian government now is going to introduce subsidy, or is confirming the fact that inevitably there is subsidy in the oil and gas sector at the downstream level? Because you know that one of the issues we've tackled here is that you cannot say you are responding to market forces and at the same time you are saying, the market forces can hold on. In December, the federal government had the opportunity to have even increased pump price of fuel twice, in line with the declaration of the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources in March, April 2020. But they didn't. In fact, if anything, they reduced the pump price of fuel. Now, analysts are now saying that the reason this is the case is because there's so much opaqueness in the oil and gas sector. One, we don't even know how much crude that we sell. What is the exact volume of crude? Two, crude is sold in dollar, right? Now, when you sell in dollar, the Nigerian government will make more money. There's an increase in revenue, right? And here we buy in naira. So there are many questions, to be asked. Government is making more money. The people are paying higher cost at the filling stations. So many contradictions that have been signposted by this. Analysts go further and say that, okay, maybe we should get our refineries in Nigeria working. We have been one of the highlights of this present group managing director's program of action is that refining in Nigeria will be made possible. But can they get those refineries to work? Should they sell those refineries in Port Harcourt, Warri, Kaduna as scrap? Because it is very obvious that we cannot manage the process of refining through the public sector arrangement that is in place. So many questions raised by this, but if they say there is no need to panic, there's no need for hoarding, well, again, this is market forces responding in a different direction because people have a responsibility to also protect their own interests in response to what the market presents to them.
Market realities, which is really biting a lot of people owing to the fact that when you look at it over the weekend, prices of food surged, tomatoes over 100%, beans over 200%, fruit and vegetables all surged over the weekend. So petroleum prices, pump prices surging, price of food surging. That's a cocktail we just hope never continues in this country. But on the flip side, on the good side, the girls are back home. That's the most important thing. All right, that's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Ruth Sediri, Michael Wilson, Adesuwa Moro, Aaron Akirjala to give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19, and sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Right, welcome back. Still the morning show right here on the Rise News channel. Let's quickly go to Ruth Sediri and talk some business this morning. Ruth.
Yes, good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Doctor. Well, you've already pretty much done the first bit of news justice in your prior segment. The Nnpc has put out in the wee hours of this morning a press statement from the Group General Manager, Group Public Affairs Division, Dr. Kenny Obateru. They also broke down their press release in tweets saying that there will not be an increase in fuel price in March, and they are cautioning against hoarding. I guess there's a couple tweets where they essentially said that they don't want to agitate their ongoing discussions with labor, and they also interestingly said that they want to cause more hardship on everyday Nigerians. But as Doctor already said, this is coming up against free market forces and also contradicts what the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Nnpc Silva, said, where he told Nigerians to brace up because as crude oil prices increase, you will expect to see an increase at the pump. That's how the free market works. So again, you've pretty much done this justice, and it's a contradiction of what's already been said, and maybe them saying that there will be them specifying that there's no fuel increase in March suggests that perhaps the free market forces will be allowed to move in April, but. It has to be said, we don't have a deregulated downstream sector at this point. It's just, we just don't. But anyway, moving on from that, the central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, paid his visits to the Dangote refinery, ongoing construction there, over the weekend, I believe it was on Saturday. And it's been reported that he said that Naira oil sales, that's crude oil sales, will be made to the Dangote refinery. So essentially, what that does, in addition to what he said about reducing FX liabilities on Nigeria and also reducing FX demand, because that refined products, when they come back into the country, gulp a lot of foreign exchange. Hopefully, if the Dangote refinery can meet up with its capacity of about 650,000 barrels per day, that will help achieve that goal. The thing, though, there's two things to note here. One is, what exchange rates would you be selling that crude oil to the Dangote refinery? Because there is, of course, the fact that it's priced in dollars. So, they're either going to have to use, I'm guessing, the INE window or the exchange rate. And then they also have to talk about the impact on our foreign exchange earnings, because crude is priced in dollars. So, if you are going to sell a portion of that in Naira, then you're now losing out on your foreign exchange earnings. And then you're also talking about the fact that if you're looking at if the other refineries are to come on stream, there's a competitive aspect of this, to where you're not going to be wanting to support just one particular refinery in this regard, because there are others that are going to be coming on stream. So if you're going to be selling crude oil to them in Naira, you have to be looking at other refineries coming on stream soon. I understand the BOA Group is actually working on the refinery of their own. Also, the Dangote Group's Chief Strategy Officer, Aliyu Suleiman, he also made a proposal, reportedly, that only oil refiners, should have permits to import fuel into the country. They should be allocated based on their capacity, and only the ones with licenses should be able to do that. Now, what he's saying makes sense, but the thing is, the only person right now who is on his way to having the capacity to refine fuel is the Dangote Group. So if they're the only ones allowed, and again, this is a proposal, and he made this proposal to a National Assembly Joint Committee on the Petroleum Industry Bill. They're asking for a tweak in the PIB to allow only importers or rather refiners, to have the license to be able to do that. It unfortunately would cause them to have a monopoly on basically bringing refined fuel into the nation. So right now it's just a proposal, but it's something that we'll have to see if they actually move on and decide to do that. I think we can talk about earnings now. Vice President Osibanjo, let's take a quick listen to him at the special CBN Bankers Committee conference that took place on growing the Nigerian economy on Friday. He had something to say about cryptocurrencies. Let's take a listen.
Clearly, the future of money and finance, especially for traditional banking, must be or is as exciting as it is frightening. But as we've seen in many other sectors, disruption makes room for efficiency and progress. Secondly, I fully appreciate the position of the CBN, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and some of the anti-corruption agencies on the possible abuses of cryptocurrencies and their other well-articulated concerns. But I believe that their position should be the subject of further reflection. There's a role for regulation here, and it is in the place of our monetary authorities and SEC to provide a robust regulatory regime that addresses these serious concerns without necessarily killing the goose that might lay the golden eggs.
All right, and that is our update so far.
All right, Rotus, real quickly. I don't support that proposal, and I'll tell you why. There are other people too bringing in products, that have modular refineries. Like there's this company called Niger Delta Petroleum, NEDHP or something. Small modular refinery churning out in the Niger Delta region. And some other people are building modular refinery. In fact, I've been in the room in meetings where like 5 or 6 guys were trying to, help raise capital to build modular refineries. And people are going into that space. It might not be the scale these people have, and it might not be all the products you want to get on the horizon, but people are doing these businesses. So what we should even do is to be able to open for a level playing field, to be able to commercialize the sector even more, and bring it in and bring in that full level of participation. But people are refining oil in this country, but they have small modular refineries, not at the big capacity. I think when we have a lot of this modular refinery, then we'll be able to push up the envelope in meeting the demands. It's not one big refinery. I mean, why a lot of people are talking about this refinery is because it's got 650,000 barrels per day production and the likes and things like that. Secondly, moving on to the issue of cryptocurrency, I mean, nobody said it better than the Vice President. This is the things we keep saying here. Because we forget in a hurry. This whole system, even called the central banking system, was an innovation at a point in the world. It came into being, government said, okay, let's regulate markets and things like that. Before, the markets were up to the speculators. I'm sure in your economics class, you remember the story of the Dutch tulip, right, and saw how speculators grabbed the market. So it's a disruptive technology, and it will disrupt. And I think money has not even disrupted itself in a long while. Money ought to have disrupted itself longer than this time. It's even shocking that in 2021 we're still using paper money in the first place, fiat money. I thought money should have disrupted itself even further. And that's the way it will go in the world. It will get to a stage, cryptocurrency, and blockchain technology will all technology. And I'm saying in the next 10, 15, 20 years, there's going to be accelerated development in the payment space. And let's wait for it. Let's open our mind to it.
Well, for a central bank that has been introducing policies in terms of increasing its foreign exchange revenue, it must appear strange to many commentators that the government, the Nnpc, is now saying it will sell its major foreign exchange earner in Naira to a particular company. I think that in this regard, the Nnpc will need to give us more explanations. We need greater clarity in terms of this, so that we do not now reach a situation where the Nnpc is being accused of favoritism or opaqueness or lack of transparency or an attempt to create an oligopoly in the refining sector. But I know, of course, that there has been a lot of enthusiasm with regard to the Dangote refinery coming on stream,
yes.
Which would help the supply within the country. Yeah. We need greater clarity in this regard. Should we not just sell at the same level, in the same manner, to everybody? And as for cryptocurrency, I would have loved you to comment on Red Sunday, which happened yesterday, cryptocurrency going all the way down by over 5%, 8%, and whether cryptocurrency is correcting itself or whether this is something that we need to worry about.
All right. Thanks, Rotus. I know you would have loved to react to that. Probably maybe you get a chance tomorrow. Let's go now to Michael Wilson in London, but that'll be after a quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk some more. All right, moving on to Global Business Updates. We've got Michael Wilson joining us now from London. Michael, good morning. How are you?
Morning, fine, thank you. Sort of business as usual, really, this morning after that chaotic session, certainly in New York on Friday. US FDA approval of the one-shot Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccine has helped. And also the global recovery trade really coming back. So that shifted people away from some rather disturbing stuff out of China. If you think they're going to pull us through, weak China PMIs this morning, official manufacturing services yesterday, that disappointed, as did South Korea and also other Asian countries. However, in this morning's trade, Nikkei up by 2, China's Shanghai up by about 0.5%, and the CSI climbing by about 1%. So generally speaking, fairly mixed picture, but that sort of chaos as we saw at the end of last week is not travelling through to this week so far. China, now they have their big People's Congress Thursday and Friday this week. They have a feeling about the one-child policy, which I'll come on to. But this Congress will actually headline the fact that what they're going to do is to go for self-sufficiency in particular rare earth elements. I would say to them, good luck with that, because they do have to import those kind of things, but we'll see how it goes. Now, as far as the one-child policy is concerned, that is something which people look to and say, well, is there a one-child policy or is there not? It's a bit sort of unclear at the moment, but it's clear now that what they are worried about is the aging population. This hit Japan and will probably hit China. And when you talk to so-called economic experts about all this, and they look forward to where China is going to be, is it going to continue to be the biggest economy in the world when it overtakes the United States in a couple of years? They doubt it because of its increasing older population. Of course, older population, not that productive, not in jobs. Well, at least so far. So US recap then, equities race higher overnight on vaccines and stimulus. We know that the US House of Representatives passed the 1.9 trillion stimulus package on Saturday, but still has to get through the Senate. I suspect that what will happen, the noise about stimulus has been fairly quiet. We'll get a little more stuff about inflation during the week as a result of it. I I don't believe it myself, but the verdict, the jury's out on this. That one-shot vaccine gets approval from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the United States. That was signed off on Sunday, and it actually, that's committee voted unanimously to approve it. So that's actually quite good for the United States. Now, I said that Warren Buffett, the Secretary of Omar, would be talking over the weekend. He indeed did, and probably people taking a little more notice of Warren than they did of what economists actually say. The bottom line about it is, whilst he celebrated the success of his own investment, the one thing he said was, do not bet against the United States. He said that the growth has been extraordinary in the United States. That's not to say he's not talking up his own book. He has a lot of US equities there as well. And also the Buffett indicator. This is something which US markets tend to look at, given his success in investing. The contrary to that is where they think the danger is, and what they do is they divide the Wilson 5000 index, which includes most of stocks and shares, by the annual US GDP, and the ratio of that is actually the danger, and that's risen quite considerably. I won't go into the technicals of it. I'm just telling you that's what actually happened. So a chaotic day on Wall Street, Nasdaq and the rest of it, but futures are very much higher today. Over the weekend, of course, our own Finance Minister, Rishi Sunak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, has been talking about the budget, which happens on March the 3rd. That's on Wednesday. What he's saying is quite interesting. He's saying that given, I don't know why we're seeing the American pictures there, we're talking about the UK now and Rishi Sunak, but we'll leave it for the moment. Anyway, so Rishi is talking, and he's been talking over the weekend, and what he's been saying is that the fact that the vaccine outroll has been so high in the UK that the economy should actually recover relatively quickly. So that's actually quite good. There will be tax increases, of course, in the budget. We're looking at corporation tax as well. But I think the more defining moment of it is going to be what about job creation? That will be the key to it. But nevertheless, quite a bright picture he will talk on Wednesday when he stands up to give his first budget. Oil recoups some of its losses, basically reflecting the general market retreat of asset classes. Gold's broken its strategic support below 17.49 an ounce. That's a very technical thing, but we'll see how that goes. I would also push you towards Dr. Copper, who has actually given his or her diagnosis of what's going on by the increase in the price. Copper is used hugely as far as cars and wiring is concerned, and the increase in electrical cars may well force that price up further. So Dr. Copper doing extremely well. Week ahead, what we've got here is EU and UK PMIs. We get those kind of things, but the most important thing, naturally, US jobless figures on Friday, and those, if they get to an increase of, say, 140,000 jobs, then that actually probably will work quite well. That's what the street's forecasting at the moment, an increase of 140,000 jobs. That may well get more optimistic, but certainly I think as we looked at last week's weekly jobless figures, which I was discussing with Reuters on Thursday and Friday, things are slightly improving in the United States. Now, let me just give you some food for thought for interest rate rises. You've talked about inflation. I talk about inflation. Inflation is something which is concerning the world. Here are 3 questions to ask central bankers to decide whether or not interest rates will actually rise. Number 1, if inflation goes up as a result of the virus, will it not drop out of the register a year ahead? Thus, the annual inflation figure will drop. So that might mitigate against interest rate rises. What is the level of elasticity with any central bank thinking about how worried they should be about interest rate rises, inflation, and therefore interest rate rises? And thirdly, if budgets are fiscally tight, and every budget will be fiscally tight unless economists and finance ministers are crazy, throughout the rest of the world there will be fiscal tightness because people need to raise taxes. Will not therefore the onus on the central bank not to tighten increase? I think it will. There are 3 reasons. There are 3 questions to ask when you have these people on your program as to whether or not there will be interest rate rises. Think about those 3. That's your global view.
Okay, quickly. Just short questions. First, OPEC meets this week. What should we expect? Is there likely to be an increase in supply to meet incremental demand? Two, yes, you talked about China. Japan seems to be doing better than China, in the last 2 months economically. But during the week, last week, Xi Jinping, the president, was boasting about how China has been able to eliminate absolute poverty, particularly in the rural areas. Now, what lessons can we learn from that? Because he was saying that his administration since 2012 has been able to lift, or even earlier, had been able to lift over 770 million people out of absolute poverty. Here in Nigeria, that's something that resonates because our government also wants to lift 100 million people out of poverty. Now, are there lessons we can learn from China? And finally, how are the markets responding to President Biden's first legislative win?
Okay. First question. What was your first question? Sorry, remind me of your first question. OPEC meeting this week. Okay. Yeah, all right. So what's going to happen? It doesn't really matter what OPEC decides this week. I think things are going to be very, very choppy indeed. Nobody knows what demand is going to be. Nobody knows really where the oil market is. Nobody really knows whether there are still super tankers full of diesel oil being diverted as a result of the cold weather that was in Texas and now is no longer in Texas. I think what's going to happen is, and shale oil as well will have to lift itself out of recovery to try and fill any production gap. So all that being said, I feel as though we're kind of looking towards peak oil in maybe 2024. And up until then, things are going to be very, very rocky indeed. I think it would be very, very difficult to predict. But I know that the sweet spot for oil, generally speaking, around the world, is between $60 and $70 a barrel. Doesn't make it too expensive, doesn't make their revenues for those oil producing companies that depend on them to fall too much. If OPEC can get towards that, then I think it probably will be quite happy. As far as absolute poverty is concerned, well, you do the maths. First of all, do you believe that's what's happened in China? How would we know? Secondly, what kind of lessons are there? What you do is you can throw money at it, but you only have to do the sums. You multiply how many million there are in what is absolute poverty by how much you think they would actually need to get them out of absolute poverty. I think it's a generational thing. I don't think you achieve this through helicopter money. I think what you do is you create jobs for those people. That is the lesson. The lesson is always jobs and always education. If you stick to those kind of three things, then you don't go wrong. As far as Biden's concerned, well, the stimulus bill has happened. At least it's got through the House of Representatives. Still has to get through the Senate. There may have to be more compromises. And will there be more worries about inflation, as I suggested? Yes, there are. In terms of what geographically and politically Biden is planning, that's one for the political analysts. But I would say so far that what he's doing is slightly more accommodative to the major questions, which is one, Iran, and secondly, China. If he's accommodative to those two things, then we may well see more international trade agreements, and that surely is the way forward.
Right, Michael, three good case scenarios you posited, and the last one was about fiscal tightness, and that's definitely going to happen because once inflation starts to get up, a lot of helicopter money coming into people's pocket pushes inflation up one way or the other. Interest rates will take a beating as a result of that. Isn't that making it too quick for Rishi Sunak to be thinking of increasing corporate taxes now? Because he's thinking of increasing corporate tax to be able to pay off all those debts, but there's going to be a fiscal tightness.
This is exact. So the worst job in the world is to be the leader of the opposition who has to stand up in the House of Commons, or virtual House of Commons right now, and reply immediately to Rishi Sunak's budget on March the 3rd. That is a really difficult job. And I think what he's going to have to do is precisely that. What he will say is, you're doing all this too quickly. You're raising taxes when you should be letting the economy recover. What Sunak is saying, as I just said to you, is that he is saying, yeah, I have to do this, unfortunately, but I think there'll be sufficient strength in the economy for it to rise very, very quickly. So it's all risk and reward, isn't it? It's just like in that football match, when you're entering those last few minutes and it's 0-0 and you need to win, do you push the attackers forward or do you play defensively for the 1 point? or do you go risk everything for the 3 points? That is the question. So you're absolutely right. That's what the leader of the opposition, Sir Keir Starmer, will have to do. He will have to stand up and say too much tax too quickly.
All right, real quickly, what inventiveness is Sunak going to come up with? Unemployment rate for the first time in a long time in Britain, 5%.
5.1.
5.1%. What inventiveness is going to come in with to tweak the economy and to jolt it forward?
What, you mean the white rabbit out of the hat? I don't know. That's what he does. I mean, that's what chancellors do. That's what you stand up and give something which is completely unexpected. I'll tell you what I would do. I would have, if you really want to know, I would have a pandemic tax. In other words, I would tax all those companies that have done very well out of the pandemic. No problem about that. Takes a load of asset allocation out of the economy, takes free money out of the economy and puts it into a bond that we could all invest in. I'd buy it.
Well, there's been a Gordon Brown plea, budget plea, and then the shadow chancellor is saying that there are certain things Sunak must not do. He must not raise taxes, he must not freeze public sector pay, and he must not cut welfare. Well, on Wednesday, we'll get to know that, I guess.
All right, thank you so much, Michael, for your time. For update on COVID-19 pandemic, Adiso Omoro is here with us, but that's going to be after a quick commercial break. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back. We'll talk everything COVID-19 pandemic. Adiso Omoro is here with us. Adiso, good morning.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Tundu. And good morning, Dr.
Morning,
Abasi.
Adiso.
Well, globally, we have recorded over 333,000 new infections in the last 24 hours and 5,832 deaths, according to the Johns Hopkins University, bringing the total to what you have on your screen for both infections and deaths globally. Meanwhile, Nigeria recorded its lowest daily infection and death toll since the beginning of the second wave of the pandemic. 240 new cases were recorded in 13 states. We saw the largest infections coming from Anambra State, which is in the southeast of the country. This time last year, Nigeria had only recorded one confirmed case and no death toll. It goes to show you just how far we have come with this pandemic. 1 year down the line, over 155,000 cases, over 1,900 deaths, and thankfully 133,000 people have been discharged after recovering from this virus. And still in Nigeria, barring any change in delivery plans by UNICEF, the country is to get its first tranche of 3.92 million AstraZeneca doses of COVID-19 from the COVAX facility. This was made known by the SGF, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, who doubles as the chairman of the PTF, which is the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in the country. Now, it is not clear how the distribution of vaccine will happen, but the federal health authorities in Nigeria are banking on leveraging on their past experiences with mass vaccinations, such as that of polio, to execute the COVID-19 vaccination. As to who would be prioritized, we've been told by the primary agency, which is the NPHCDA, that the first batch of this vaccine, the first phase, we see priority groups to include frontline health workers, support staff to those health workers, first responders such as security personnel, strategic leadership, and those with comorbidities. AstraZeneca vaccine, as we know, are forming majority of the COVAX facility, which will be shared in 92 countries with no cost, at no cost to the government of those countries. They are regarded as the low and middle income countries who cannot afford these vaccines a lot. It's supposed to help them vaccinate 20% of their most vulnerable population. I know a lot of people will be wondering, why did Nigeria go for Oxford AstraZeneca when we remember that South Africa ditched this vaccine to go for the Johnson & Johnson? Well, I'll leave that to you guys. Let's quickly move forward. We'll come back to that. To South Africa, actually, where the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, announced downgrading of the coronavirus alert level from 3 to 1 due to falling infections. Now, the level April 1 will see most economic activities resume, while measures such as adjusted curfew and restricted numbers on gathering remain in place. In an upbeat address yesterday, President Ramaphosa also announced that the country has signed a deal with Johnson & Johnson to secure 11 million doses of the vaccine. And speaking of the Johnson & Johnson, as expected, the U.S. advisory panel has endorsed the one-dose COVID-19 vaccine as the third option to bolster the national effort against the coronavirus in the country. And finally, this morning, after facing fierce criticism over the small number of inoculations it had provided to Palestinians living under its military occupation, the Israeli government yesterday confirmed it will vaccinate Palestinians in the West Bank with permits to work in the Jewish settlements in the occupied territory and inside Israel against the coronavirus. Now, the West Bank has seen some donations from countries like the UAE, but it's still not enough. They are also expecting to get their share from the COVAX facility. Over to you guys.
Well, very quickly, on Israel, let's start.
From home.
From home,
yes.
Nigeria. I think it's exciting that eventually we're being given concrete assurance that today some packages of syringes and some other items will arrive under the COVAX facility, and that tomorrow we'll get the vaccine, close to about 4 million. Now, that's quite exciting.
Yeah.
But the question is, what is the level of preparation on the part of Nigeria? Because if you look at other countries, Greece, South Korea, even South Africa, which you mentioned, they will have mapped out vaccination centers. Where are the vaccination centers for Nigeria? What is the national immunization plan that we have in place? And are we prepared? But it is good that we're getting the AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yes.
In terms of refrigeration, we're in a good place. It is plus 2 degrees centigrade, plus 8 degrees centigrade in terms of refrigeration, something that we have been reassured by Boss Mustafa, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, is easily available in Nigeria. Now, you have talked about why are we taking AstraZeneca vaccine when the South Africans rejected it. Well, the South Africans, they have the South African variant, what has been known as the South African variant. And you will recall, you brought the story yourself.
I did.
About a study that was conducted as part of the processes for adopting it after South Africa had announced a national immunization program. 2,000 survey sample of affected persons, mostly young people, and it was discovered that the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine could not tackle the South African variant. And immediately, and that's something we should learn from the South Africans. Immediately within the space of 1 week, they did a period. And, 1.5 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine that they had ordered, they changed their mind. And they quickly went for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And that same week, the program was supposed to start on Monday, but that same week, they started their immunization program. As we speak, over 67,000 health workers, frontline health workers, as they tell us, have been immunized in South Africa.
Yes.
So there is that excitement, and it is on the basis of that and the response from the people of South Africa in terms of attitude that President Cyril Ramaphosa went on television yesterday to say that, look, they will move the alert level from level 3 to level 1. And the details, of course, you have provided. We hope that, Nigeria will try to learn lessons from some of these countries as we receive the vaccine doses in terms of how, they have processed their own programs. And we would like at some point to have the president of Nigeria himself, President Muhammadu Buhari, coming forward. Because yesterday I was delighted that President Cyril Ramaphosa has been leading the charge in the same manner in which we have seen the president of Ghana leading the charge. Now, when Nigeria receives the syringes and the vaccines, I hope the syringes we will receive will be the standard ones, and we will not have the Japanese situation where doses could not be properly administered because of the wrong size of the syringe. We are also hoping that, they will work in terms of public information, public enlightenment, because I've seen many Nigerians, including professors. I had an encounter with 2 professors yesterday who swore that they will not take any vaccine because they are suspicious. And I was telling them, you people are professors, and you should be educating people. But they say, no, there are issues. And even in the UK, there are efforts to make sure that they address vaccine hesitancy. And there are people in Nigeria who say that they are covered by holy water.
What?
Sad, but it's true. It's true.
What, really?
It's true. That's what some people are saying.
I wanted to talk about the AstraZeneca vaccination beyond what Dr. Abati said about how South Africa and why South Africa rejected it, then ended up making that donation to the African Union. You'll recall that President Macron and Angela Merkel also rejected the AstraZeneca vaccine, saying that it was not efficient for a certain demographic, meaning the elderly. But they have since eaten their words as the data continue to roll in. So congratulations to Nigeria. The vaccine continues to prove effective, and I think we're really, in good standing with the AstraZeneca vaccine.
All right, thank you so much.
We also do not have the South African variant. We have to say that as well.
Okay, yeah.
That's that caveat.
All right.